That's a lot of hate for Battle Royale. Wait a second, that's not hate for Battle Royale, that's hate for infection and firefight. I wonder when we started letting haters decide what was fun for Halo and actually not trying anything new. Well, let's get started.
Troopers, we are green and very, very mean!
Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm here with a new video today. This video is not going to just be covering why I believe Battle Royale is a missed opportunity for Halo, but what great innovations and features we could have seen, and that the hate for Battle Royale is the real hype trend prom and not the game mode itself. So before you decide to jump blindly and hit that dislike button, hear me out and hear what I have to say, and you probably might change your mind on what you hear here. I know this will be long, but it'll be filled with a lot of good information that isn't being brought up about Battle Royale that will really change the way people think about this. See, we easily jump on the hating trends, and sometimes it's for good reasons that are really dumb, like dabbing and fidget spinners, but other times it's not really for good reason. Without even thinking clearly, we've hated Battle Royale for no reasonable cause, to be honest, and the toxicity by the Halo Elitists got people to jump on this hate train hype early. I was one of those that did initially, hate Battle Royale before realizing I really didn't think it through on whether or not it was just or not. We just assumed because they are fans of Halo just like us that they must know what they're talking about. But be warned, these Halo Elitists are nothing new to Halo, and you will realize soon that if we had always listened to their hate and wanting to quote-unquote keep Halo pure, Halo would have died after Halo CE because of no new innovations, because they just pretty much hate everything. In every game, there are always going to be some fanatical fans that just love Halo so much, though, that they feel that they are the ones to tell everybody what they like and what they shouldn't like, and trying to shame people for liking anything new or different.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
So we are just assuming, since we love Halo as well, that they know that what they're talking about is the right thing to hate, and because of thinking it will be bad for Halo without any valid points, we just go along with it. But truth is, they don't know. They make strongly biased claims and feel superior to other people's opinions. And I just want to get this out of the way before it gets taken out of context here. When I'm referring to Halo Elitists, I'm referring to people that use basically fallacy arguments. They don't have any actual point. They just want to just purely tell people this is the only way to like Halo. If you like anything different, you're not a true fan, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. I know it'll sound like I'm talking about competitive players a bit here, but in reality, these Halo Elitists exist in both groups. It's not competitive players, it's not casual players, it's just a certain type of people that just feel like they can tell everyone else what to like using fallacy and biased arguments so that you can't say what you like because they think that they have a superior opinion. Everyone loves, certain aspects that might differ from other people. Some have, just unfortunately too much time on their hands to tell others what to like and to think because they're too much of a busybody. Don't get me wrong, being a fan of a game or a movie or TV show or song is perfectly normal, but when you become overzealous about it, it doesn't help the community, and unfortunately some can't see that and need to be called out so that they can wake up and see how far they've gone, that they feel that they need to tell others what to like. And I'm going to call out those Halo Elitists that claim that Battle Royale will be the death of Halo if it exists. By the way, I'm sorry that I'm late for this video. I know that Luke the Notable already did one on the controversies of Battle Royale, but I'm going to be covering more about invalidating the Halo Elitists and how this caused a missed opportunity with Battle Royale and what we could have got with Battle Royale mode if it had come out, possibly. Because of this ridiculous blind hate started by Halo Elitists towards Battle Royale, many players have already been falsely convinced in the community to hate the mode without actually having a good reason, and you could go as far as saying that it influenced 343 Industries into not doing Battle Royale. They could have changed Halo in a huge way. I tried looking around to see what the arguments against Battle Royale, if there was any legitimate ones, and I found that pretty much the majority of the ones going around were nonsensical. There was no real argument against it. Let me list these out for you. They claim biased things like Battle Royale is boring and people won't like it. It would take away from other game modes, even other modes would get removed or not finish polishing the modes or the overall game, that the game mechanics would need a huge overhaul, that it doesn't feel like Halo, and to keep Halo Halo and to make it stay pure, and that Battle Royale is too cartoony, and that it is a trendy mode that has just been hyped up, and that the trend would eventually die and never last.
Who has taught you these lies?
I've collected these top common claims that I see going around that seem to be the majority of the argument against Battle Royale, and I'm going to just debunk each one of these, showing how invalid these illogical arguments are.
We shall cut into the heart of this infestation.
Let's start off with the claim that the game mode is boring and people won't like it. I'm sorry, but did we just invent a time machine or an alternate dimension traveling device so we could go into the future or another reality where Halo did have Battle Royale?
Great Scott.
Unless I'm mistaken, there's no such device, and that this is just based off a biased opinion. There are some that don't like it. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to play it. There are other modes you can play other than Battle Royale with Battle Royale existing. It's not one or the other. To say it's boring is a huge stretch when two of the top games have the highest player count and are dominating the gaming industry. And with so many people playing PUBG and Fortnite, it's clear that this is an opinion of a minor few. And so we proof right here that why we shouldn't be going off of people saying things that we shouldn't listen to, like, oh, don't take any risks, just take my word for it, it'll be boring. It's just invalid. It's fine to dislike it, but don't tell others, don't bother, you won't like it. It's, disingenuous trying to tell others what to think to play a bias in this. So let's move on to the next claim. Next, the claim is that the Halo Elitists say that it would take away time from other game modes, even remove other modes, or not finish polishing those modes and the overall game. Again, no proof that this would be true in any way, nothing to back this claim. It just sounds reasonable until you break it down, and that historically remember that this is an actual fallacy that is used in any argument from people who just don't want to see something get made. When has any game ever been perfectly polished out the door and been able to add new content? Exactly. Perfect historical example of this being used in real life is when McCain in the 2008 debate wanted to delay it to focus on the economic crisis. It's a delay tactic to avoid having to address something in hopes that by the time it'll be too late, in hopes that it'll help them win when they don't have a good ground to stand on.
You delay the inevitable.
Halo 4 and Halo 5 are missing classic modes too. In fact, Halo Infinite announced that it was just showing off the engine. They're still a long ways off from releasing a game on it, so it sounds like they're taking their time development with this like they should. It sounds like how Microsoft realizes that they need Halo Infinite to succeed. They are going to take however long it takes to make it right at launch, and it means that delaying the game to make sure it's overall polished, they will do it with or without Battle Royale. So that's regardless of whether or not that's going to happen. And funny thing here is they originally said with these Halo Elitists that it would take away from other game modes, but didn't they just claim that this game mode would be boring, that people wouldn't play it? Yet here we are with them being hypocrites saying that it would be stating that it would take away from other modes because more people would be playing that. So are you saying that it's boring and no one will play it, or are you saying that it's going to be popular, it's going to take away from other modes? See, now the arguments become hypocritical in their own statement. Which is it? See what I mean by how illogical their arguments are? You have to remember that historically this argument has always been used by people that don't want to see anything new that they don't like. When a game is being developed, it's not being developed by jack of all trade type of people. There are people that work on different things. There are level designers, there are character artists, there's programmers, prop artists. Once they do their job, they move on to the next project. So they have people that are focused on polishing these game modes while working on other things. And even then, nothing is fully well done until after the beta. That's what a beta is for, but I'm sure most people don't see betas other than just early demos and don't understand that in fact developers use this as testing for glitches, bugs, and other issues. And the whole we will lose game modes to Battle Royale, what a load of BS. The only modes that get taken away is if 343 feels that they aren't ready or they don't plan on it coming back. Are you going to actually claim that Warzone was the reason why Halo 5 had few game modes at launch, or was it that they announced intentionally that they left out modes because they thought it would make it better if they rotated the maps and keep them fresh, but turned out that that's not what the fans wanted? If you aren't sure on this, it's the second one. Here's another issue. Even without Battle Royale, there's going to be certain modes that just don't return. Since Halo CE, there have been a number of new modes getting added that has been increasing over time. Some modes just stay, some modes evolve, and new ones get added while others get dropped. I remember some great modes from the old days that are no longer here that were classics. There have been modes that were only one-time things that were only in one game and never seen again. Halo Reach's Headhunters and Stockpile, and Halo 4's Regicide, Dominion, and Ricochet. Those were all one-time modes that just got one chance and were gone. And for all we know, Halo 5's Breakout might not be making a return. Some were fun to play, but it just didn't feel like for 343 it was worth keeping. That's their decision with what fans do want return and what don't want. For me, I would love to see Invasion return from Halo Reach. That was a pretty fun mode. Even if we had the population of Halo 3, gate at launch, we wouldn't still be able to fill every mode that exists in general, even without Battle Royale. There are great ways to get Battle Royale mode to exist and still be able to keep all the well-known modes still going. Halo 5 did something like this in the later years, and I believe Halo Master Chief Collection is doing something similar as well. By putting all the objective modes together for the most part and stuff like that, what they should do though is create a server browser that gives you the options of join in progress or not, and be able to join matches that you want and make the default 3 multiplayer sections, kind of what Halo 5 kind of has right now, where we have the competitive ranking arena with the casual non-ranked social. I'll just call the third one MTX playlist or microtransaction playlist with Firefight, Warzone, and Battle Royale. I'll describe more later on about that. Basically, you go into it like a normal 3 selection options and you can select the different playlists. They keep it simple with all the objective modes as one playlist, all Slayer playlists in another, and all the free-for-all in a third, and so on with different sizes. So we got Infection, Griffball, Big Team Battle, SWAT, Team Arena, Team Objective, free-for-all, and so on. But that's if you just don't care what you play, whether it's Oddball or King of the Hill, you just select it and you go and you get a match quickly. Boom, done. If you want, specifics on which ones you want to use the server browser. If you understand what I'm saying here, you can understand how this keeps all the modes together and keeps them populated. So there's still Theater, Forge, Custom Games, their server browser as well, and the campaign and so forth. But the multiplayer, by doing this, you will be able to keep the playlist more populated by condensing the modes together for easier searching for matches. The server browser would be used for those that want to be auto taken out of the end of the match and be put into a new lobby with what you are looking for. Doing this with JIP will make the search extremely fast, but it'll be riskier to get bad matches because you're just joining progress. But if you do the non-JIP or join in progress, then you'll be taken out of that match after your finishes, but you'll have to wait for the next map that'll probably still be taking a little bit of time, but it'll still be faster than just regular searching. You would be able to search for specific maps and specific modes if you wanted to, but the more specific you get, the harder it'd be to find. So it'd be dependent on your choice, so it'd give players more freedom to choose what they want to play. And even better, if you can go from Big Team Battle, Infection, and Griffball seamlessly transitioning from one mode to the other after one finishes, that would be a huge improvement. But let's go back on track here. It's the point here. If this were to be implemented, there would be no worries of certain modes dying out. But here is the thing too. Why should we remove a mode like Battle Royale to keep a certain mode that's dying and less populated and players don't like as much? Where's the logic in that? If you try to force players with less options, they aren't going to play the game. They're saying like, oh, that's great, I got less options now, man, that sounds like a big improvement, I'm gonna keep playing this game. They're gonna go find somewhere else to play. Thus, this wouldn't be helping Halo get back up there. It'd be getting people pushed away from Halo if you're forcing them. For all we know, Battle Royale could do the opposite, make Halo great and put it in the spotlight. So what makes a blind accusation that we should just blindly go the opposite route here and just exaggerate the claims that it would take away from other game modes and even kill it, and we should wait until the game is polished and is just a lazy man's excuse to delay? The delay tactic isn't fooling me, and it shouldn't fool anyone that knows this fallacy. If anything, Battle Royale would be basically how Blitz mode worked in Halo Wars 2. It would be so popular enough that most of your DLC would be free of charge for the most part, without microtransaction messing with the main multiplayer and only having it in one area. The only one that wasn't even free was Awakening the Nightmare, which was a campaign DLC that was a huge expansion with the amount of lore and campaign that was added with a new multiplayer mode. That was understandable, but all the other multiplayer stuff was all free because of that. Let's address one more thing here before we move on. This annoying paid DLC is going to give us what we want. No, it won't. DLC takes time with planning and months of effort working on this. Paid DLC doesn't just fly on demand within a week or two of asking for it. It doesn't happen like that. I'm sorry, but that's not how AAA games work. This stuff actually does get planned. And the biggest problem with paid DLC and why it's dying is it splits up the gaming community, and people try to argue against this, but no, it's true. It's what causes paid DLC to get lower populations and thus wasting money even on good DLC, but people just can't can't afford it. Halo 3, for instance, I loved it. I loved Halo 3 and I loved the DLC, but guess what? Not everyone did. And I remember a perfect example that kind of made me understand this was when I saw one gamer who basically was who I was talking with, and he told me about his profile. He's like, check it out, just because it was a funny joke, and it was in a way. He goes, I was banned from Halo 3 multiplayer for not buying DLC. I sat there for a minute, I couldn't understand it, but then it took me a while to understand what he meant, and then I did. All the playlists required DLC, and because of it, if you didn't have it, either because of financial reasons or storage reasons, you couldn't play the multiplayer. Bungie later realized this, and even though a lot of us always bought the DLC, it really wasn't fair to the rest that didn't. Halo Reach learned that too, as when certain people didn't buy the DLC, they couldn't get certain achievements because of this in multiplayer, and so people that did pay for the DLC, they weren't seeing these maps coming up in rotation as often because not enough people were playing it. You had a full party, well, one person didn't have it, you didn't get to play that map. So this is why I think the whole paid DLC is a joke, because it kills the population and it doesn't guarantee that you'll get what you want. So you pay a bunch of money for a map that if one person in the group doesn't pay for it, they don't get. But if you make the playlists require DLC maps, then you start segregating those that don't pay for DLC. So you don't win either way on this. So now that I've beaten this claim to death, let's move on to the next one, and that is that the Halo mechanics would need a huge overhaul. Again, another great non-fact based claim that looks sound, but it's full of it. You are not taking PUBG or Fortnite's version of Battle Royale and making a Halo skin out of it. Battle Royale for Halo would mean that Battle Royale concept would fit within the Halo certain mechanics that would fit within the game. Call of Duty and Battlefield are doing their own versions of Battle Royale. You see with Battlefield 5's recent release that they show that they're going to have fire and consuming, and they have vehicles gameplay in it. So clearly it's possible. And I also want to note here that if Battlefield 5 fails, we already know why. So don't try and claim it's Battle Royale. I know if you're going to try and use that, but we all know that Battle Royale is not going to be the reason why Battlefield 5 fails. And it's with the PR nightmare that the EA executive caused with the non-authentic cosmetics and how they trash talk their consumer base, and now their pre-order sales are low. So enough of this nonsense. King of the Hill is not played the same way in Halo as it's played in Gears of War because they designed the modes around the game. Game modes are designed around the game, not vice versa. So at this point you might be wondering what would have, Battle Royale look like or played like. Well, I did post a page on Reddit that goes into further details on this that I can, give you the quicker version of it and link you below it. But I propose basically 3 types of Battle Royale mode: free-for-all, team, and firefight. Even people that jumped on the hate train for Battle Royale had a difficult time trying to disagree with the Battle Royale mode for flood and firefight together, which people were like, well, I'm supposed to hate this mode, but this mode sounds really fun to play. For free-for-all and team Battle Royale, I don't care much about the size, just whatever feels right in testing. If it's 100 free-for-all and 50 versus 50 for teams, then so be it. But the firefight Battle Royale would be perfect for microtransactions because it's already how Warzone Firefight already is, but instead the players would be dropping down feeling like they're Halo ODSTs or something like that. Even more stuff you could have to your arsenal. It would just start off, or if you're respawning, you would drop out of the sky and guide yourself down to a set location. Even can land on enemy AIs and do damage to them. You can be fighting the flood and all other enemies that just drop out of the sky, and they can even land on you if you aren't paying attention because they will go down, pretty slow when they hit the ground. The UNSC will, drop in their drop pods. The Coveys and the Banish and all of them would be dropping down insertion pods. Flood will drop in dispersal pods, and maybe we can even see, the Forerunners get some sort of pod too without the teleporters. My idea for the most part was the mechanics of the Battle Royale is used for one of the things that Halo has always had in its lore, but we've never utilized, and that's the pod system. The UNSC had them, the Covenant had them, the Flood had them. Nothing would look more badass than picking your spawn points and dropping down in your insertion pods or your drop pods, depending if you're Spartan or Elite, and land feet first into hell. Find and attack your enemies, look for ordnance pods for ammos, pelicans, spirits, and phantoms dropping off weapons. Even maybe some Forerunners might be included with their own Forerunner version of pods, possibly dropping out of the air with air vehicles being dropped off with the weapons and other vehicles, and some other cool concepts from old Halo games. They do exist, and so it is possible. Firefight would include objectives too for extra points and extra, rewards as you fight for survival with limited lives. Those extra rewards will help you fight to stay alive by destroying and protecting targets and other things. And you'd play on Zeta Halo Ring, and the way that it would get smaller and smaller is certain sections of the rings would be dispersed off like how they did in Halo Wars 2, and the area would get smaller and smaller. People argue that balancing will be an issue, saying that sniper rifles will be too powerful. What, dude? They're already sniper rifles in multiplayer matchmaking, so are you saying that they're OP in multiplayer in general? Battle Royale is just a map, has nothing more than just larger map size, has higher player count, and higher weaponry. As you saw in the trailer for Halo Infinite, we see thick wooded areas to easily avoid snipers and rockets. Also, isn't Halo known for its power weapons, and how do they already balance those in multiplayer competitive matchmaking? Oh, easily. They just reduced the number of shots, so you have to use them sparingly, be cautious with making every shot. So there is a risk versus reward established. You might have, a rocket launcher, but if you fire it from a distance, you have no guarantee. Even if it was the Halo 2 rocket launcher and it was locked onto an enemy, if they go behind a hill or a boulder, they're going to get away from it. So you have to use the weapon at the right time at the right place, which also brings up how Halo can have not just microtransaction armor to buy, but the game you could have a larger arsenal of weaponry and vehicles that currently Halo 5 Warzone, but with the inclusion of more classic weapons like the night vision Halo CE sniper rifle or the Halo 2 Infinite lock-on rocket launcher. Remember those good old days of the Ring of Fire, or the super Halo 2 plasma pistol lock-on one, or the Halo ODST suppressed SMG.
Now's one of those times. Pays to be the strong, silent type.
We could even be seeing the UNSC motorcycle that never made it past early development concept and was eventually just replaced with a mongoose, or a different camo warthog from the Halo 2 era that never made it into the final Halo 2 product. And the flood mode can bring new flood from Halo Wars 2, which a lot of people loved how much more vicious the flood were than in any other Halo game. And even Flood that never made it past the concept, even the big old daddy Flood Juggernaut, which is now canon because of the Flood Abomination, which is just an evolved version of the Flood Juggernaut, and was even seen in the new Halo Fireteam Raven. The reason I announced microtransaction playlists is because 343, way back before the announcement of Halo Infinite, already announced that microtransactions will be making a return. I'm not sure if a lot of people actually read that, but it's going to happen, unfortunately. So the question here is how you want microtransactions implemented. Do you want it in all the multiplayer matchmaking games and no Battle Royale, or do you want Battle Royale and not have microtransactions in the multiplayer? Because saying you don't want either is not going to be an option at this point. No one liked in Halo 5 when people were bringing in their armors that were microtransactions. They were mimics of earned armor. So instead we have one playlist with Battle Royale, Firefight, Warzone, and keep the multiplayer with only earned armors through actual challenges and achievements to show up, like the ones a lot of fans were asking for with Halo 5, but then got upset when they came out with Helios Scroll, or however you say it, being sold as a microtransaction alternative look to it. And it was like, well, what's the point of earning it when someone can just buy it, and it devalued the importance. Even Battle Royale could do a lot for microtransactions, both through open world or in-game currency, like being able to buy certain cool skins like honor guards or ultra elites or ODSTs, or playable characters like Captain Keyes.
Coming here with reckless. You two know better than this.
Julem Dama. Endurance of Will. Artas Vadum.
Shipmaster, they outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight.
Atriox.
Little demon.
Arbiter.
I will continue my campaign against the humans.
Tartarus.
The brutes, not the elite, shall be the prophet's escort.
And even the good old Sergeant Johnson.
Me!
So 343 Industries and Microsoft would be able to make a profit off of Battle Royale mode, Warzone, Firefight, popularize Halo again, and still keep regular matchmaking traditional, and still keep it alive and not be affected by microtransactions, where you can only wear earned armor. I see this as a win in today's gaming environment with just a simple multiplayer option of microtransaction, competitive, and casual. You got your BTB, your Griffball, your Infection, section, and so on. And social, you got your SWAT, your team arena, your team slayer, and competitive arena. With this whole server browser option choices and the way to set up multiplayer and how to get battle royale to work with it and all the cool features we would have in it, I know I have a bunch of big ambitions for Halo, but the reason why is because initially I was one of the first people to suggest battle royale before it was called battle royale. I was one of the first people back in Halo Reach to suggest something on the Bungie.net forums of an idea of where players spawn in pods and drop down into the map. This was actually, oddly enough, back then something people liked that idea. They actually thought this was cool before the blind hate for battle royale. There was two reasons why this was liked. One was because you could choose your own spawn points, and this is because if anyone remembers in the past Halo games and up until now in Warzone, you know that the spawn points are not entirely fixed. They've not been fixed in a long time, and a lot of times you just get spawn killed. You spawn right out in the open and either fall off a cliff or get ran over by your teammates who are just driving and they don't see you, and you just spawn 1 second in front of them and they don't have time to stop, and boom, you're dead. And so because of that, spawning is just not fixed at all. You just spawn next to an enemy and get killed, and it was just annoying. So the idea was that you could be able to spawn near bases and be able to drop down. So I came up with an idea like that back in Halo Reach's days, and people actually liked that. Unfortunately, it never got implemented, but people actually thought that was a cool idea to, you know, be able to drop out of the sky and choose your spawn points. And actually, I wasn't the only one who suggested this. There's actually a couple people that suggested stuff like this as well. So in case if you do die, if you were the one that gets killed when you choose your spot, that's on you and not on the game failing to find the spawn point. And the problem is they have yet to fix it so that spawn points actually work. The idea back then though was not really a battle royale map. It wasn't like one life and it closed in on each other. It was just you spawn in the respected areas of your base. This also made it so that it was harder for players to just camp out and be able to know where you would spawn and just sit there and wait, which actually required more skill for those players that actually have to be able to hold those points. And if they didn't pay attention, they would just get, you know, an ODST pod dropped right on them. So with the spawn points not entirely fixed and still haven't been fixed in almost a decade, this gave players the control to spawn where they wanted in outdoor map areas where it would actually fix those issues, and it gave the player the control, and that you could avoid all these spawn killing, spawn trapping, accidental betrayals, and camping, and all that stuff, you know, spawn killing campers. It would just get rid of that because you would be able to choose where you want to spawn, and also, quite frankly, it looked badass. That was the second reason. The idea of back then, it was really popular with Halo 2's campaign and Halo 3 ODST, the whole concept of it, these ideas of being able to drop out on pods and be able to land in the areas and, you know, be able to fight on wherever you wanted. Well, not entirely wherever you wanted, but limited areas, but you had more choice on where you wanted to land. That was the idea that was really actually cool back then, where you could just spawn in where you wanted to, drop out of the sky and kick the doors open and go out guns blazing. That was actually a really cool idea, and then unfortunately just it didn't make it. But yeah, I got the idea from Delta Halo from Halo 2 and the Halo 3 ODST campaign, and also the trailer for the firefight that showed off. Got people all hyped up with that kind of mode, and it looked awesome with the Chief landing and coming out, wielding an SMG and a rocket launcher, and Sergeant Johnson killing enemies the second he popped the door open.
Bam!
So I thought, how can we incorporate this idea into a multiplayer game? And I thought, what would be something that players loved? And so that's why I suggested on the forums, and that's why people thought it was a great idea. The idea actually first came to me when the game Section 8 came out, and I was playing the demo of it. The game itself didn't do well because it was trying to compete with Halo when Halo was at its peak years, but the spawn mechanics had the players launch out of the sky, come raining hell down on any enemies below, and it was actually pretty fun to do that. And there was risk to this. If you spawned over an enemy base, you had a huge chance of being gunned down by auto turrets and being severely damaged if you even survived it. So you had to pick the right spawn area yourself. And if the player didn't pick the right spawn area, then, well...
He chose poorly.
And for people back then that were all over the forums and they were talking about this and they actually loved this kind of idea, to all of a sudden people hate it now today, it doesn't just magically happen like that. It's like Halo Elitists have been doing everything they can to try and convince people not to try anything new, and they don't realize they missed out on a huge opportunity for a cool new feature to fix spawn systems, and unfortunately we're probably too late for it. But that's the thing, these Halo Elitists want to keep Halo back in the day so much they don't realize that everything has to evolve. You cannot just sell Halo 3 today and it would sell well. You have to have an improvement, and so Halo Elitists got everyone blindly thinking that Battle Royale will just plainly fail without any proof of it, just because they want to keep everything the same and never adapt to new changes. Instead, we could have had this huge possibility with Halo slingshotting itself back up to the top with lots of innovations and features, but instead we could have missed out on a huge opportunity here. And something like this could have huge potential for Halo. Anyways, let's move on to the next bogus claim here, that it doesn't feel like Halo, and to keep Halo Halo and make sure it's pure, and that Battle Royale looks too cartoony. Anyone that uses this argument needs to seriously go back and play Halo CE to Halo 3 and try to tell me that again. First off, Battle Royale can be either serious like PUBG or cartoony like Fortnite, and anything in between that. So that's just an argument not even fully thought out. They aren't using Fortnite's graphics. They aren't going to be using Fortnite weapons and mechanics. We're not going to be parachuting down out of, the sky. Where do these claims come from? Thin air? Also, Halo is a mix of both. Its original design from old games with, both serious and cartoony sides to it. This whole thing about Halo has to be Halo. Look at some of the Halo game modes and don't tell me that they don't look cartoony. Shooting people in the heads and confetti explodes everywhere. Flags fly all over the place, exploding dead characters, and you have to collect the flags to win. Using hammers to beat down your enemies to score a bomb that you kamikaze to run into score. Game mode where you hold a skull in your hand. It's funny when people claim that this is too cartoony and they complain about this, but yet they complain about how Halo 5 is too realistic. Mythic Tyrant actually recently did a video on this on the rise and fall of Halo, the complete series, and in it he details how people didn't like the realistic graphics and mentioned how Halo did have some realism, but it also had some slight cartoony to it. And I mean, you had grunts telling jokes in the middle of battles.
Hey, demon! The jerk store called, and they're all out of you!
In my opinion, the Halo games were loved and had the perfect balance between these realistic and cartoony graphics, and with its own kind of art style that made it unique, and people loved that, and it just slowly got lost after Halo 3. Most people think Halo Infinite is getting back into the roots, with Halo has that both semi-realistic but also that side of whimsical sci-fi look that just naturally fits in its original way. All things that matter, like shapes, values, colors, themes, textures, details. Halo 2 Anniversary and Halo CE had more realistic graphics, but with some cartoonish looks to it that people still looked at it and said they still felt like they were playing Halo. Several major YouTubers brought up the art style and how it was being brought back and accomplished in Halo Wars 2 because they could notice how the banished art style looked. You take a side-by-side of Chief's helmet from Halo Infinite and Halo 5 with their armor, and you look at the helmets and you see how simplified Halo Infinite is. It's still using physical-based texturing like Halo 5 is using, which is where the realistic look comes from, but it's keeping it simple. You can see with these Marines too that they are realistic looking, but they don't have that plastic color looking armor. It feels more like a natural Halo game. Even maps themselves had this problem if they were too detailed. Halo 1 through 3, they kept it simple. They blocked it out with the limits of the engine back then. I know that was a factor by default, but when they made these maps, these characters, these weapons, you had to block them out, you had to simplify their details, you had to focus on certain details, but not overall. Just replacing small bits and pieces and then replacing those placeholders with finished versions. And the simplicity is why people can remember something better when the shapes and looks and colors and themes just all, match and they just work. If you throw too much detail in it, you make it too much detail in there, that's why you get these older maps that people can remember the names for, but yet you look at some of the newer maps in Halo 4 and Halo 5 and they're just so detailed and everything that you get lost in it, and it just looks like it's all meshed up and the same, and so people don't remember most of these maps as well as they do with Halo 3. And you look at some of the maps and you don't see any major standout locations like the old maps do. The same with enemies. The problem is with a lot of what people mention, like Fabian's video about should Halo lores affect gameplay, and late night gaming, why people don't like Prometheans, how 343 can improve them in Halo 6, where they also noticed that the problem with Promethean weapons and armor is that they all look the same.
Anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
all the colors are the same, and from a distance their shapes are less recognizable. They all have an orange glow. Both weapons and enemies do this, and the excuse is lore, and I agree with Fabian that the gameplay comes first over lore. Halo games are what made Halo what it is today still. The books and TV show and so on, that's just secondary. Books were just lore fillers for people that wanted to know more about the Halo universe. They shouldn't be the deciding factors of gameplay. If you did that, Super Sentinels in Halo games would be near indestructible, and the plasma weapons would be ridiculously overpowered. So to say that Battle Royale is not Halo because some people feel like it's too cartoony, even though Halo has always had a both mix of cartoony and realistic, that's to say that a game mode that has to take itself super serious and realistic would be more close to making the mistakes of Halo 5. Halo's art style, its original art style, when it was at its best, always had a mix of both, the right amount of realistic and cartoony with that art style that just felt like Halo and not being just one or the other. Battle Royale can just perfectly fit in a Halo, the same capabilities to make it feel just like Halo visually and mechanically, and with the lore side of Halo, we can still definitely use canon features like that in the gameplay that would work for Battle Royale with drop pods, ordnance pods, and so on with various weapons and vehicles and armor. And no one said that Spartans were going to just come down on kites or winner chicken dinner. If a mode was to be created, they'd be made, to feel more themed like and naturally fit into Halo with it instead of kites and parachutes from Fortnite and PUBG. Instead, you'd be raining hell down on these pods and then, going out guns blazing.
Could we possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
We'll rain down in teams, Reds versus Blues, Elites versus Spartans. See how blind hate now just made us miss some cool things that we could have seen in Halo? And for every time I've heard these quote-unquote keep this game, if I got paid $1 for every time someone said something like that, I'd never have to work a day in my life. It's not a real argument. It's just a fallacy that has no actual value to it. And I saved the best for last because I really want to talk about this one that might just blow away some people's minds here about this hate on Battle Royale. So let's talk about this whole it's a trendy game mode that has been just hyped up and that this trend will eventually die out and never last.
Are you sure about that?
I really don't understand this whole thing about what if Battle Royale fails. Other game modes and other Halo games since Halo Combat Evolved have had modes that have been a one-time thing, and they were popular or they failed, but they still tried them. Even if Battle Royale did fail, which we don't even know if that's going to happen, it could be the exact opposite, but let's say it did. At least we actually gave it a chance, like every other game mode. We gave so many other game modes a chance in Halo that have failed or succeeded, but still never returned, like Invasion, or they ended up staying and becoming staples. And so the bash on a game mode that hasn't even been given a chance and yet is working out on several other major games is ridiculous that we even criticize it. Yeah, there have been games that have failed that were Battle Royale only games. Yeah, they failed, but that's because they put all their eggs in one basket and they had nothing else interesting about it, and they just looked like generic knockoffs of the popular modes. Halo has its own uniqueness to it, which is why it has a better chance. Halo has so much more going for it, and with its uniqueness to it, so far it's not a fair comparison to compare it to some third-party app game. I saved this best for last because I really want to show you how biased the hate is with these purists that they don't want anything new. If you play and enjoy Infection and in Firefight and you say that you think Battle Royale is just a trendy mode that'll die, you don't know how hypocritical you probably sound right now when using that argument. Most people have forgotten or don't even know, don't remember because it weren't back in that time, but both these modes also received hate from elitists that were purist types. Let me, awaken the nightmare here, and that this was the hate that Halo, Infection, and Firefight got back then when its ideas were being incepted, trying new things. That's right, believe it or not, there used to be hate for both these game modes before they were even becoming a thing for Halo. That's just that. Unlike today where social medias are able to reach out very quickly and people can get instant gratification for hating something, it wasn't so easy for messages to get across, whether it be good or bad. So it's easy to hate something, something not even logical, like hating pineapple on pizza, which by the way, if you do, you're really missing out. The hate did, though, get enough traction in threads that it did delay some modes longer than others that did get way hyped up more than the negative people were back then. For instance, Halo 2 Zombies was actually for the most part liked, but there were competitive players that called it stupid and boring. Sound familiar?
What is it? That stench. I've smelled it before.
And if Bungie had listened to the haters saying it was just a hype mode and to never turn it into an actual mode, we would have never had Infection created. And the thing is, Infection existed in other games, but never was it ever that popular until Halo. Halo's Infection was basically the PUBG's Battle Royale. It wasn't the first, but it was popularized enough to get it in other game modes later on that became much more common. And most of those haters for Infection, known as zombies back in the day, are gone, either because they realized they were blindly hating a mode that was actually fun and changed their minds, or some still do exist but they learned to let people have nice things.
You see, this is why we can't have nice things, Barry. You asked?
Infection wasn't the only mode that received hate before its creation. Firefight also received hate, actually a lot more. It was also one of the few modes that I also suggested too, and a few others back on the Bungie.net forums back in like Halo 2, Halo 3 days, that suggested a mode that was where you could fight bots in multiplayer. And I was, inspired by this mod in Halo CE where it had people playing in Blood Gulch and with battles going out, but I loved all sorts of different ones too that Custom Edition and Halo 2 Vista had, showing off some of these cool gameplay clips. And it was really cool watching people fight, AIs and even doing wave modes of these things coming at you. And so I suggested it on the Bungie.net forums. But sure enough, me and all the others suggested this kind of mode on different forums like IGN, Bungie.net, and NeoGAF, where a lot of the Halo Elitists exist. All the Halo Elitists were like, no, this is a dumb idea. You suck at multiplayer and you can't play against real players, and you just want to be able to play against bots because you suck. Go back to campaign. If you want to play against bots, keep Halo, not my Halo. Focus on the next Halo game, making sure it's polished before adding these new modes. Just anything to bash on players for wanting a mode to play against bots in multiplayer, and because the forums are filled by Halo Elitist players, the Halo Elitists looked more popular than they actually were, making any competitive or casual players with any suggestions get shot down. Doesn't that sound familiar to today? Like someone named T-Squared who would say something like, the problem I see with the current Halo community is the casuals saying we don't want a game built for pros. Well, guess what? I've played more Halo than you've slept in your entire life. Multiplayer should be as competitive as possible. Casuals, go play against Covenant. Funny how the times haven't changed and these elitists think that the amount of time that they play with Halo gives them some sort of seniority. Well, guess what? If that's the case, I've played just as long, if not longer. So in that case, I can tell them to take their opinions and shove it somewhere where the sun don't shine, because Halo's been capable of pleasing both competitive and casual players. So screw those that think that Halo is for one side only. That's what has been killing it for people in the multiplayer. The gameplay is so sped up and that it makes a huge skill gap in matches, and the current ranks system doesn't help, since they have on top of that a rank system that is hidden rank system, and so you have to line up with an Onyx tryhard and you might be a silver or gold player, and so it ruins the experience for those that are getting stuck in these unbalanced matches with huge learning curves of being competitive, making it unappealing for those that are casuals who make up a good 75 to 90% of most games, including Halo. And unfortunately, unlike Zombies, which was easier received with its popularity and loved, the PvE wave mode just got set back enough because Halo Elitists on the forums, committed all these fallacies and tried to make people look like it wasn't really popular, and tried to claim that the improvements to current Halo games is always the argument for most cases, but it's a bad strategy if you keep selling a game with nothing new. And so it ended up following a trend for PvE mode rather than being one of the ones to start this wave mode trend. And the PvE mode was first actually started by Epic Games in Gears of War 2 mode. It was an addictive mode that everyone loved playing, and that even the purists of Gears of War that tried to also stop it as well got ignored by Epic Games. They put it in there and people loved it. Then Call of Duty said, wow, that's really good. You know what? In World at War, we're going to put in Nazi zombies, where it's the same exact thing, PvE wave mode, but people loved it as well. And then finally Halo goes, we're gonna have to try and implement something like this, because boom, we get Halo 3 ODST with Firefight, and it blew away Halo fans. And I was so pumped when this came out, and then I played non-stop of this. I was actually one of the first people to get the Recon helmet through the VidMaster achievements, because I was on it so much trying to get that Endure achievement, and that's before I realized that the Alpha site was a lot easier to do than the Security Zone map. But either way, we still did it, and they were such fun game modes to play. Look now, it's now a staple, just like Infection for Halo, and that now there's such staples to Halo with Infection and Firefight, and when they weren't in the initial launch for Halo 5, people went crazy demanding it back.
Well, then everyone loses their minds.
But back then, every game had elitist groups of players that were against the PvE wave mode and said that it had no place in any AAA shooter, and if we had listened to them, Firefight would have never been made. Epic Games took a chance, proved purists were wrong, and the new idea was beneficial for the game. The modes, they said, wouldn't work out because it didn't fit the game art style, in the belief that it would turn it into, failing, instead turned out to be successful. Those haters now either play it or don't care about it and don't go around asking for it to get removed. And if you watched my Halo Custom Archive series, you would know that there were people back then in Halo 2 days that said it would never become anything big, and then there would never be something that would be a good multiplayer mode. And the thing is, other games also copied game modes from other existing games and added it into their games. It's clear. In fact, all these modes like Slayer, Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, and others were all from one other game to another, just evolved over time, changed and modified to different games. Slayer's just deathmatch from other video games like Unreal Tournament. Most are from that game or others. They were popular, and so other games took those game types and changed it to fit into their game. Because of this blind hate, they convinced 343 to shoot themselves in the foot, figuratively speaking, in being afraid of trying anything new in terms of game modes, and convinced them if they do this that it'll fail just like Halo 4 and 5. I'm sorry I'm going to be going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I just want to address some nonsense with this Halo 4 thing. If you think Halo 4 failed because mostly or entirely because of ordnance weapon drops, for the most part, what I'm about to tell you next, you're not going to like.
You're going to have a bad time.
You're unfortunately following a trendy lie, because that's the new reason that's going around right now in order to hate Battle Royale, by saying that Halo 4 solely failed because of ordnance drops, and trying to blame Halo 4's failure for that. Before that, elitists were trying to blame the fact that you couldn't team kill your friends for power weapons. Yeah, that's right. That shows a lot about what these elitists are like when it comes to power weapons. When it comes to being a team player, they need to be able to kill their own teammates. And before that, it was about how Halo 4 didn't have descoping. I'll admit that the alternative that they had about your gun being yanked up was really annoying, but descoping, friendly fire, and ordnance drops had no effect the actual reason why Halo 4 failed. In fact, when Halo 4 came out, during that time, there was no one even mentioning anything, complaining about that. Actually, most of the times, it was just other reasons that people were actually addressing. But people like to rewrite history after the fact. You know what people were actually complaining about in Halo 4 that people didn't like? Let's go through that. The campaign, Halo 5 definitely takes the cake, but back then, Halo 4 was considered the worst out of all of them. The multiplayer lacked heavily, the gunplay was average or just felt off, it was just mediocre. The walking and shooting sounds were just really annoying. The BR, for instance, the Halo 4 sound of the BR shooting sounded like a bird chirping with the volumes cranked up at ear-gouging levels. The weapons and armor ability interactions felt off, they didn't feel natural, and when shooting and using these abilities, they just didn't feel right. The armor abilities were broken in terms of balance, and in Halo 4 the bolt shot would have been okay and better than the one in Halo 5 version, and more unique if it wasn't considered a secondary weapon and was just way too overpowered that it made little to no use to have any of the other weapons when you had a one-shot kill charge shot. It was just like a brute Mauler from Halo 3 dual-wielded, but instead it was single-wielded. If it had just been a power weapon on the map to pick up, it would have been considered okay. And also the colors of the multiplayer felt so bleak and blurry looking with those textures. The campaign felt decent, but the multiplayer was just completely different, and it just looked really bad texture-wise versus Halo Reach and Halo 3. but then again, it was on the Xbox 360 in its final years, so that also held it back. Halo 4 also removed a lot of weapons and vehicles and other abilities that people liked, and Halo 4 didn't come out with all those cool Forge maps until later in the year. That's what people were annoyed about. Even now, more people are actually cool with the idea of Halo 5 having customizable loadouts, as long as it's in the Warzone modes, because it would actually be perfect for it instead of spending forever trying to change your customization in the middle of matches. Halo 4 was also missing maps too, not just Halo 5. Halo 4 didn't even have a bunch of huge changes like Halo 5 had Warzone, and yet, in fact, Halo 4 for the longest time didn't even allow the infected to wield any weapons besides just what they had for a default tendril arm that was a sword. And the Flood were definitely OP and not fun to play the infection mode like the other previous Halo games. Both me and Ackman both mentioned this issue with Halo 4's infection in past videos, so I'm not the only one who's brought this up. Those were real complaints back then that people complained about when playing. All this stuff now people are claiming now was the reason why Halo 4 failed was just to rewrite history. No one complained about the removal of friendly firefight or descoping or ordnance pods. Almost hardly ever did anyone complain about that. Like, seriously, the jerking up thing, yeah, people did complain about that, but I want to, go on the record here saying how right now no one is complaining about Halo 5 removed decrouching, and no one is complaining about that, but I guarantee in enough time people will start trying to say that that's the issue, that why Halo 5 failed. So I just want to say that right off the bat. They're saying, that the aim assist isn't working properly, but, decrouching itself, no one cares about that it's gone. And if there are, clearly, there isn't that many that are making a complaint about it because they're not making the majority here. So anyone trying to do this thing of blame one thing for the downfall of Halo 4 and avoiding the dozens of other major reasons why people just did not enjoy it are just trying to use this as a scapegoat so that they can use Halo 4's ordnance as an example of why we shouldn't, go with Battle Royale with things dropping out of the sky. Because they're trying to say that it resembles too much of a kill streak like Call of Duty, therefore Battle Royale should not have this in future Halo games, because therefore it's just a trend. And by the way, just a side note, ordnance system that they had in Halo 4 did not actually originate from COD. COD merely copied that system from Homefront 2011 to replace kill streaks. Ordnance was an alternative, multiple ways to play in different situations where there was the initial, the random, and objective ordnance that you could get, and wasn't even in every game mode. The implementation could have been done a little bit better, like not putting power weapons in them for individual players, but it was not even close to a problem like all the other things that were in Halo 4. Personally, I wish the ordnance drops worked with power weapons where the points where it was randomized on the map, where instead of just one spot where that power weapon spawns, it's more of in a general location so people can just spawn or weapon spawn camp the location. They know it's in a general location, but they don't know where exactly it'll be. So this actually provides more skill in the competitive arena, and there's no personal ordnance modes, as I found personal ordnance was better for certain social playlists, but not all. But again, still, this was not closely compared to all the other issues that were wrong with Halo 4, and was barely minor anything. So unfortunately, Battle Royale, they might be too late for now. Even if they do come out with it, it might be too late because of, all these delays of people hating on it. And there may have been a missed chance here that because they, could have stepped down the spotlight and get people back into Halo. But once again, we have been, left behind, and it might have just gone stale by now. You have this new mode with big opportunity, and now aren't doing it because Halo Elitists got people all hyped up on a hate train. Every original Halo game always added more to the existing game. They never sold a overall game for Halo that went backwards, that had less content. But now this Halo game gets automatically hated because of the idea of having a trending game mode makes it somehow bad with no real argument. What we need to start doing here is doing the good thing of ignoring the Halo Elitists on what their opinions are on anything, because they just have lame arguments. Well, I don't like Battle Royale. And if Battle Royale's in Halo, then I'm not going to play it because if I don't like it, no one else should enjoy it. Dude, stop. It's childish. They know it. If they don't like it, they don't have to play it. The game doesn't revolve around them. So stop saying stuff like, oh, well, it's childish with this winner chicken dinner award. Hey, guess what? Halo 3 had a steak-tacular award. Get over it. If we gave into Halo Elitist demands, we wouldn't have anything new since Halo CE. No battle rifle, no graphic changes, nothing, because haters are just going to hate on anything no matter what you change. So to conclude, it clearly has popularity here, so we can't argue it's boring or that people won't like it or that there's no proof that it'll remove any game modes away or anything like that. It could just as much do the opposite and make more players come back to Halo. Battle Royale mode can, make Halo work within its game mechanics. We even saw gameplay of this in custom games. It can feel just like Halo, even using lures as benefactors with the pod systems, which also will be a huge improvement to the spawning system. Halo has hyped and followed trendy game modes that have stuck with Halo even to this day. Everything was inspired off of something. We just altered it enough to be creatively different, and that's how things can, get done with Battle Royale, just like with Infection, just like with Firefight. So don't hate something before you actually give it a chance. If we acted like that, we could just say that Halo looks like a trendy copy of StarCraft and Aliens mixed together. #boycott Halo. There is no set in stone. This is Halo. Anything outside of Halo is not Halo. Halo is what you make it, what we find enjoyable, and we welcome into it. We need to be open and giving chances to new ideas without immediately going to a hate rampage over something that has no real reason to be hated on just because it's trending and popular. There's no need to act like a try-hard Halo Elitist crybaby who needs everything to be competitive, or if he doesn't get what he wants, then he's going to cry about it, who wants to dictate the entire game just to be whatever he likes it to be, and anything outside that, that he demands that it doesn't be added. People enjoy Halo in their own way, and if Battle Royale style Halo game mode gets a lot of praise from Halo fans, we would welcome it in open arms. And that goes to every other game mode like Gears of War and others that have haters for Battle Royale. Give it a chance. You don't like it, you don't have to play it. If a lot of people don't like it to the point where no one, plays it and there's no point in improving upon it, then let it die out on its own. But that is how Halo evolves, by being open to new ideas. Just sticking to the original stuff alone is not going to make Halo great again. You need to be open to trying new things out that might be a big hit for Halo. I'm still waiting for the day that they'll make forgeable Firefight, or even a map editor that you can fully design maps and put bots into, and you can make forts and destructible environments and have 20 players with one life and survive hordes of AI bots with you, and you have to survive against the Flood, the Banished, the Covenant, the Forerunners, UNSC, Separatists, or even the Precursors for all I know. And I want to see more things added that are cool additions that make me want to keep playing. Not the same thing I've played a million times over. More content improves Halo, not hurts it if it's done right. So hopefully after seeing this, I know it's quite long, but maybe you have had a chance to change your mind and realize that Battle Royale should have been given a chance. If it's done right and made well and not, made into a glitchy mess, and they work out all the major bugs in the beta before launch so that it's a smooth gameplay and it's a hit, it could be something you will have memorable moments with your friends, and it could become a staple like Firefight or Infection and shoot Halo back into the spotlight. If not, that's fine. At least we gave it a chance. I'd rather that we let it die out because people just weren't interested in it, rather than because we never gave it a chance because we chose to be blind.
The elites are blind, Arbiter, but I will make them see.
Hopefully I've convinced you to see that Battle Royale does have potential and how Halo may have missed a huge opportunity, and if they do decide to do it and they do it well with added ideas from fans, it could lead to some great possibilities in the future for Halo. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Comment down below if you have constructive criticism. I want to hear what everyone's thoughts are down below, and you all have a great day.